Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we journey into a forgotten world, one where the pursuit of beauty was a treacherous dance with death. You're trudging through the dimly lit halls of a medieval castle, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and a strange sweet floral perfume. Around you, ladies-in-waiting whisper, their faces unnaturally pale, their lips painted a vibrant blood red. This isn't a fairy tale, it's a reality check. The women who inhabited these castles, the queens and princesses whose portraits we admire for their ethereal, ghostly complexions, were engaged in a daily silent battle against their own vanity. They weren't just applying makeup, they were slowly poisoning themselves, one brushstroke at a time. The very glow you see in those paintings is the ghostly pallor of lead poisoning. You probably wouldn't survive a week as a medieval queen. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. In the medieval world, the ideal of beauty was a stark departure from our modern sun-kissed standards. A bronzed, healthy glow was the mark of a peasant who toiled in the fields. The sun was an enemy, a commoner's curse. For a queen, for a noble woman, a ghostly white complexion was the ultimate sign of status. It screamed, "I am so rich and important, I never have to set foot outside." My life is spent in the cool, dark privacy of my castle, not under the harsh glare of the sun. And how did they achieve this ghastly pallor? With a concoction called ceruse. This wasn't some gentle cream. It was a potent mixture of white lead and vinegar. You can practically feel the weight of it on your face, a thick paste that caked into every pore, every fine line. Imagine the sensation, a heavy, chalky mask that sealed your skin off from the world. It was the medieval equivalent of a full-face foundation, but with a horrifying catch. The lead in ceruse didn't just sit on the surface, it was slowly absorbed through the skin. Over time it built up in the body, a silent, insidious poison. Initially it worked wonders, or so they thought. The lead had a corrosive effect that supposedly smoothed out wrinkles and blemishes, leaving behind a porcelain-like finish. What it was actually doing was eating away at the skin, leaving it a mess of sores and scars. You'd apply it to cover the damage it had caused in the first place, creating a vicious, inescapable cycle. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a daily ritual, a commitment to a slow, agonizing decline. Historians still argue whether the queens were fully aware of the dangers. Some scholars believe they were completely ignorant, while others suggest they knew the risks but accepted them as a necessary sacrifice for beauty and power. After all, a queen's appearance was not her own. It was a political asset, a public statement of her wealth and purity. Beyond the face, this obsession with whiteness extended to the body. To achieve a pale, delicate look, many noble women would abstain from bathing, believing that water could open their pores and let in disease. They used thick white powders on their necks and arms, often also lead-based, to match their faces. It's a funny thought, isn't it? The same women who spent their days in stunning silks and velvets would have been walking around with a thick layer of toxic powder on their skin. A lesser-known fact is that some women would even use a mixture of egg whites and alum to tighten their skin, creating a sort of natural facelift that left their faces feeling unnaturally taut. It's a far cry from the modern serums and creams we use today. The effects of all this were, to put it mildly, catastrophic. The lead would cause all sorts of problems. First, it would attack the nervous system, leading to tremors, paralysis, and fits of madness. You might be attending a royal banquet one evening, all poise and grace, and the next you're trembling uncontrollably, your mind slipping away. The lead would also cause severe digestive issues, leading to constant stomach pain and constipation. And of course, there was the cosmetic damage. Your skin, once seemingly flawless, would become discoloured and scarred. The lead would seep into your gums, leaving a telltale blue line that was a grim sign of your impending fate. It's a horrific irony. The very substance used to create beauty was also the one that disfigured you in the end. A macabre game of I Spy with a slow-acting poison. Let's not forget the hands. A lady's hands were a huge tell of her status. To keep them white and soft, they would often use lotions containing lead or other heavy metals. You can almost see it. The delicate hands, so seemingly pure and clean, are in fact absorbing poison with every application. It's like a little secret, hidden right there in plain sight. They weren't just putting on lotion, they were applying a slow death to their very fingertips. The quest for perfection was all-consuming, and no part of the body was left untouched. Even the lips were a sight of danger. The vibrant red pigment used for lip colour, known as vermilion, was often made from cinnabar, a mineral that contains mercury. So, with every smile, every word, a queen was not just expressing herself but also exposing herself to another deadly substance. It's easy to look back and scoff, to wonder why they would engage in such obviously dangerous practices. But you have to remember the context. The medical knowledge was, well, let's just say it was developing. The idea of a substance being beautiful on the outside but lethal on the inside was probably hard to grasp. Plus, the pressure was immense. A queen was a symbol, an icon. Her appearance was scrutinised by all, from her subjects to her rivals. To be anything less than perfect was a weakness, a chink in the royal armour. So they took the risks, they endured the pain, all for the sake of appearing a little more divine, a little less human. The deadly beauty ritual was not a choice, it was a duty. A queen's life was not her own, and neither was her skin. You've wiped off the thick layer of lead paste, but the horror isn't over. Now you're sitting in front of a heavy silver mirror, a trusted lady-in-waiting hovering at your shoulder. She holds out a small ornate vial. Inside is a colourless liquid, and you're instructed to apply a tiny drop to the corner of each eye. This is belladonna, a plant whose name literally means beautiful lady. A drop of this stuff, an extract from the deadly nightshade, makes your pupils dilate, giving your eyes a wide, luminous and somewhat hypnotic quality. It was the ultimate, albeit temporary, transformation. You'd look into the mirror and see a deer in the headlights, a look of perpetual shock that was to them the epitome of innocence and allure. But here's the kicker. With that drop, you're also losing your ability to focus, your vision becoming a beautiful, blurry mess. The more you use it, the more you risk long-term blindness. It's a literal gamble with your eyesight for the sake of a fleeting, unsettling beauty. Belladonna wasn't the only poison in the medieval queen's beauty arsenal. Let's talk about the pale skin again. Beyond the lead-based ceruse, some women went even further, using powdered arsenic to achieve a deathly white complexion. Now think about that for a second. Arsenic, the very word, conjures images of sinister plots and dramatic poisoning deaths in classic literature. But in the medieval world, it was sometimes viewed as a cosmetic treatment. You'd mix it with vinegar or rose water and apply it to your face, often as a face wash or a poultice. The arsenic would peel away the top layer of skin, revealing a fresh, unblemished layer underneath. This was a brutal form of chemical exfoliation, a sort of medieval-era microdermabrasion. Of course, the new skin was often raw and sensitive, and the constant peeling only exacerbated the issue. But for a short time, you'd have that ghostly white glow. The real price, though, was internal. Like lead, arsenic was a cumulative poison. It would seep through your skin and into your bloodstream, causing a host of terrible side effects. Your hair might start to fall out in clumps, your nails would become brittle and discoloured, and your stomach would be in constant turmoil. The long-term effects were even more grim. Nerve damage, organ failure, and a slow, agonising death. Historians still argue whether these noble women were fully aware they were using poison, or if they were told it was just a powerful mineral with special properties. The lines between medicine and magic were blurry, and a royal apothecary was often as much a sorcerer as a doctor. It's hard to imagine a modern celebrity being okay with putting arsenic on their face, but for a medieval queen, the pressure to be pale and ethereal was so immense that the risk was apparently worth it. It's a macabre version of the modern obsession with flawless skin. Then there was mercury. Oh, mercury! You've heard about it in thermometers and fish, but in the Middle Ages it was a common ingredient in everything from medicines to cosmetics. It was often mixed with lead and other substances to create a skin cream that was meant to cure blemishes and create a smooth, glowing complexion. The mercury was thought to have purifying properties, a kind of magical ability to cleanse the skin from the inside out. Of course, it was doing the exact opposite. While it may have briefly brightened the skin, it was also causing severe and lasting damage. Mercury poisoning is a nasty business. It can lead to severe tremors, kidney damage, memory loss, and even psychosis. You're a queen, you're supposed to be a bastion of stability and grace, and yet you could be found muttering to yourself in the corner of a room, your hands shaking, your mind slowly deteriorating. It's a chilling thought. The very thing you used to project an image of perfection was also the thing that was quietly unravelling your mind. The use of these three substances, belladonna, arsenic and mercury, is a testament to the desperate and often misguided lengths to which medieval queens would go for beauty. It wasn't a matter of choosing a bad product. It was a matter of a complete lack of understanding of the consequences. They were working with what was available, and in their world, powerful things were often viewed as magical or divine, not as toxic and deadly. A quirky tidbit is that some queens would even use a mixture of crushed pearls and vinegar to create a sort of pearl essence to give their skin a shimmer. This was more for a youthful glow than for paleness, but it's another example of the bizarre ingredients they'd use. The calcium in the pearls was more or less harmless, but the acidic vinegar could still irritate the skin, proving that even the safe rituals weren't always so safe. Let's go back to belladonna for a moment. Beyond the dilated pupils, the drug had other effects. A single drop could cause a racing heartbeat and a flushed face. It could make you feel a little dizzy, a little lightheaded. Some historians suggest this was part of the appeal. It was a drug, a kind of high that was legally and socially acceptable. You could be at a royal banquet, sipping from your goblet and feel a little out of it, a little dreamy, all because of the drops you put in your eyes earlier. It was a private escape, a small rebellion against the rigid life of a queen, and it was all in the name of looking beautiful. The idea of a substance being a cosmetic, a drug, and a poison all at once is a complex and fascinating one. It shows how the line between medicine and harm was a constantly shifting target, one that was often crossed with tragic results. Imagine the secret of it all. You are a queen, surrounded by your court, but you can't tell anyone about your tremors or the constant stomach pain. You have to keep up the facade of perfection, even as your body slowly rebels against the poisons you've fed it. Your lady-in-waiting, your most trusted confidant, might be the only one who knows the truth. She mixes the potions, she applies the poultices, she witnesses the slow decay. But her loyalty is to her queen, and her duty is to maintain the illusion. The whole court is a stage, and every person has a role to play. The queen plays the beautiful, untouchable goddess, and the lady-in-waiting plays the silent accomplice. The court might whisper about your strange moods or your sudden fits of rage, but they'd blame it on a bad humour or a spell, not the toxic cocktail you were applying to your face every day. The truth was far more mundane and far more terrifying. So, as you can see, the pursuit of beauty for a medieval queen was not a leisurely hobby. It was a high-stakes game of Russian roulette, where the bullets were made of mercury, arsenic and belladonna. Every morning, you'd wake up and decide which poison you were going to apply to your face or put in your eyes. You'd have to choose between a beautiful face today and a healthy life tomorrow. And for a medieval queen, the choice was clear. The pressure to be beautiful was a suffocating, all-consuming force, a poison in itself. The very essence of her power and her identity was tied to her appearance, and she was willing to sacrifice everything to maintain it. You've managed to survive the morning application of lead and arsenic, and your pupils have settled back from their saucer-like belladonna gaze. Now a new torture awaits you, the daily ritual of hairstyling. A queen's hair was a crown in itself, a symbol of her wealth, her status, and her power. But to achieve the perfect look, you're about to put yourself in another kind of danger, this time from the tools of the trade. Your ladies-in-waiting bring out an ornate comb, its teeth gleaming in the faint light filtering through the stained glass window. It's not made of wood or bone, but of lead. This was a fairly common item for wealthy noblewomen, believed to be a sign of luxury and refinement. As they begin to work through your long tresses, you can feel the heavy, cool metal scraping against your scalp. The lead comb was used for a few reasons. Firstly, its weight made it feel more substantial and expensive. Secondly, it was believed to have a slight cooling effect, which could soothe the scalp. But what they didn't realise was that every time they ran that comb through your hair, tiny particles of lead were getting deposited on your scalp. Your skin, remember, is already porous and compromised from the other poisons you've been using. The lead from the comb would be absorbed right into your bloodstream, adding to the toxic load already circulating in your body. It's a bit like topping off a poisonous drink with another, slightly different poison. It's a very slow, very subtle kind of self-harm. You might have noticed your hair becoming more brittle lately, breaking off in clumps, and your scalp feels more sensitive than usual. You'd probably chalk it up to stress or a bad humour, but it's really the lead doing its dirty work. Beyond the comb, there was the matter of hair colour. While many queens and noblewomen prided themselves on their natural hair colour, some sought to change it to fit the latest fashion. The most popular colours were variations of red, blonde, or even a dark, dramatic black. But the dyes they used were not the gentle plant-based concoctions we have today. To achieve that vibrant red, they'd often use a dye made from vermilion, the same mercury-based pigment used for lip colour. To get that shimmering blonde, they'd sometimes use a mixture containing sulfuric acid. That's right, an acid. The acid would bleach the hair, giving it that golden hue, but it would also burn the scalp and cause severe hair loss. To a medieval queen, a receding hairline wasn't a sign of ageing, it was a sign of a successful beauty ritual. It's a hilarious, tragic bit of history, isn't it? You're literally burning your hair off to look beautiful. And let's not forget the elaborate hairstyles themselves. A queen's hair was not just a simple matter of a bun or a braid. It was a complex architectural marvel, a towering structure of braids, coils and ornaments. To achieve these gravity-defying styles, they'd use all sorts of props and accessories. There were wire frames, hairpieces made from horsehair, and pins made of bone or wood. But even these mundane objects had a dark side. A fun, quirky tidbit is that some noblewomen would use a mixture of egg whites and sugar as a kind of hairspray to hold their styles in place. It worked, but it also made their hair a sticky, sweet mess that attracted all sorts of bugs. Imagine a queen at a grand banquet, her hair looking impeccable from a distance, but up close, it's crawling with ants. It's a bit gross, but also kind of funny, in a dark, historical way. The headpieces were another potential source of harm. A queen's headdress could be a massive, heavy contraption, adorned with jewels, pearls and veils. This was a statement of power and wealth, but it also put an immense strain on her neck and scalp. The constant pressure and weight could lead to headaches, neck pain, and even nerve damage over time. Historians still argue whether the physical discomfort from these elaborate headpieces was a conscious sacrifice or just an accepted part of a queen's daily life. Was it a form of penance, a physical reminder of her station, or was it just plain ignorance? It's a debate that's still going on in academic circles. Let's talk about the hygiene aspect of hair. Remember that we're in a time where bathing was a rare and often ritualistic affair. Hair was not washed daily or even weekly. Instead, it was often refreshed with dry powders, often a mix of flour, starch, or even lead powder. This would absorb the oils and make the hair look less greasy. But it also created a breeding ground for lice and other parasites. So you're a queen, you look magnificent, you have an army of servants catering to your every whim, but you're also probably scratching your scalp constantly, trying to get rid of the critters living in your hair. It's a very unglamorous reality behind the glamorous facade. The very people who were the most beautiful were also the most likely to have lice. It's a cruel, ironic twist of fate. The use of hot tools was also a dangerous game. To curl or straighten their hair, they'd use heated irons or tongs. These were often heated over a fire and the temperature was impossible to control. You could very easily burn your hair or your scalp, leading to painful blisters and permanent damage. There's a historical fact for you. The first known use of heated hair irons dates back to ancient Egypt and Rome, but the medieval versions were no less crude or dangerous. They were just another weapon in the arsenal of a queen who was willing to risk everything for a certain look. The ultimate irony in all of this is that the very things they were doing to make their hair look beautiful were also the things that were making it fall out. The lead in the comb, the mercury in the dye, the acid in the bleach, it was all contributing to the slow, steady decay of their beautiful manes. A queen might have been admired for her thick, long hair in her youth, only to find herself balding in her later years, her once glorious locks a mere memory. It's a tragic tale of vanity and ignorance, a story of a queen who was so focused on the outside that she didn't realise the inside was falling apart. So, as you can see, even a simple task like combing your hair or styling it was fraught with danger. The queen wasn't just a passive subject of her beauty rituals, she was an active participant in her own slow, steady demise. The beautiful hair, the towering headdresses, the perfectly coiffed tresses, they were all an illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. You've survived the makeup, the hair, and now you're invited to a grand feast. The table is a spectacle, groaning under the weight of roasted boar, spiced mutton, and towering pies. But for a medieval queen, the real treasure is not the savoury meat, but the sugar. In this era, sugar was an impossibly expensive import, a luxury item that only the wealthiest could afford. It wasn't just a food, it was a status symbol, a demonstration of immense power and global connections. A queen might have a small dish of candied fruit or a sweet pastry for dessert, a sign that she was dining on the very best of what the world had to offer. To have sugar was to be a part of an elite class, to be truly exceptional. But this love affair with sweetness had a dark, rotten secret that would slowly and painfully disfigure a queen's beautiful smile. While peasants gnawed on hard bread and vegetables, their teeth were surprisingly healthy, scrubbed clean by the abrasive, fibrous foods. A queen, however, was living a life of soft, refined indulgence. Her diet was filled with rich pastries, spiced wines, and, of course, that precious sugar. This constant exposure to sugar was a breeding ground for bacteria. Without modern dental hygiene, no floss, no fluoride, no toothbrushes as we know them, the queen's teeth would begin to decay at an alarming rate. It's a bitter irony. The very thing that showed her power was also the thing that was slowly and painfully destroying her. You might feel a sharp twinge in your molar as you bite into a honey-soaked cake, a warning sign of the decay happening just beneath the surface. That sweet taste you love is also a painful reminder of your impending dental disaster. A mainstream historical fact is that dental problems were a huge issue for the wealthy classes throughout the medieval and early modern periods. Portraits from the time often show people with their mouths closed, or with a subtle, tight-lipped expression. This wasn't just a sign of dignity, it was often a way to hide a mouthful of black rotting teeth. A queen, with her constant consumption of sugar, would likely have been in a state of perpetual dental agony. A simple toothache could turn into a life-threatening infection, a dental abscess that would swell and throb, making it impossible to eat or even speak. And the remedies for these ailments were often as painful as the problem itself. They might try to pull the tooth, a brutal and bloody affair with no anaesthetic, or they might use poultices and herbal remedies that did little to solve the underlying problem. A quirky tidbit is that some people would use a concoction of ground charcoal and salt to try and clean their teeth, a very abrasive and only somewhat effective method. It's a far cry from the minty fresh toothpaste we use today, isn't it? The pain, of course, was a constant companion. A queen's life was not just about banquets and politics. It was about enduring the gnawing pain of a rotting tooth. It could keep you up at night, make it impossible to concentrate on state affairs, and even affect your speech. Imagine trying to deliver a powerful address to your court while your entire jaw throbs with pain. The queen had to be strong, to project an image of effortless grace, but beneath it all she was in agony. Historians still argue whether the constant dental pain contributed to the short tempers and erratic behaviour of some of the more famous queens. Was it just a part of their personality, or was it a reaction to the persistent, debilitating pain they were in? It's a fascinating question that sheds new light on the personalities of these historical figures. The problem wasn't just the teeth themselves, it was the entire mouth. The constant sugar and lack of hygiene would lead to gum disease, bad breath and sores. A queen was expected to be a vision of perfection, but her close-up interactions would have been less than pleasant. Remember that perfume we talked about? A lot of it was used to mask body odour, but it was also used to mask bad breath. They would chew on herbs or spices, but the underlying issue of decay remained. A lady's kiss might have been sweet, but her breath, well, that's another story entirely. It's a little joke, of course, but it's rooted in a very unfunny reality. The obsession with a perfect smile was also present. To fix a missing tooth, some noble women would have a dentist, if you can call them that, fashion a tooth out of bone or even lead. Yes, lead. It was sometimes used as cheap filler to replace a missing tooth. So not only are you poisoning yourself with the lead in your makeup and hair comb, but now you have a little bit of it in your mouth as well, slowly dissolving and leaching into your system every time you eat or drink. It's a testament to the lengths they would go to maintain an image of perfection. A perfect smile was more important than a long life, it seems. The social and political implications of this were immense. A queen was meant to be a symbol of beauty and vitality, a perfect example for her people. But if she had a mouthful of rotting teeth, it would undermine that image. It would show that she was human, fallible, and subject to the same decay as everyone else. And in a world where a queen's power was often tied to her divine right to rule, any sign of imperfection was a weakness. so they would hide their smiles, keep their mouths closed, and suffer in silence. The secret of the Queen's teeth was a private tragedy, a source of constant pain and shame that she had to hide from the world. So, the next time you hear about a medieval queen's legendary love for sweets, remember the dark side of that story. The sugar that made her smile so special was also the thing that was slowly and painfully taking it away from her. The beautiful sugar-filled life of a queen was a one-way ticket to a mouthful of pain, a constant battle against decay, and a silent tragedy that she had to bear alone. You've finished your meal, wincing through the painful aftershocks of a too-sweet dessert, and now you must attend to a new problem, the pervasive reality of medieval body odour. Remember that we're in a time where bathing was infrequent, and while a queen might have had more access to water than a peasant, it was still not a daily habit. The belief that water could carry disease and weaken the body meant that cleanliness, as we know it, was not a priority. A queen might have a bath once a month or even less, and in between, she would cleanse her body with a dry cloth and perfumed powders. This led to a very real and very pungent problem. A queen's court might have been a place of opulence and beauty, but it was also a place of smells, a miasma of unwashed bodies, stale clothes, and food. To a modern nose, it would have been a truly overwhelming experience. So, how did they cope with this? With perfume, of course. Perfume in the Middle Ages was not just a pleasant scent, it was a weapon against the stink of daily life. The Queen's lady-in-waiting would bring out a small ornate bottle, perhaps made of glass or carved bone, filled with a thick, syrupy liquid. This was your perfume, and it was a complex and often dangerous concoction. The base of many perfumes was civet, a substance extracted from the anal glands of the civet cat. It was a potent, musky, and, to a modern mind, a very unappealing scent, but it was believed to have a strong staying power and a unique ability to mask other odours. It was a truly bizarre and slightly gross reality of royal life. A queen's signature scent was literally a product of an animal's rear end. Beyond civet, perfumes were also made with ambergris, a waxy substance found in the digestive system of sperm whales. It was a very rare and expensive ingredient, a sign of true wealth. The ambergris would give the perfume a sweet, earthy scent, but it was also a sign that the perfume was made for a truly elite class. The rest of the perfume would be a blend of plant extracts and oils, from rosewater and lavender to more exotic ingredients like frankincense and myrrh. But even these plant-based concoctions had their dark side. The distillation process was crude and often involved heating the ingredients in lead or copper pots, which would leach into the final product. So, when you put on your perfume, you weren't just smelling nice, you were also absorbing small amounts of heavy metals. Historians still argue whether the use of these animal-based ingredients was a conscious act of cruelty, or just an accepted part of the natural world. There's no doubt that the animals suffered, but in an era where animal welfare wasn't a concept, it was just a means to an end. It was the price of beauty, a price that was paid by both the Queen and the animal kingdom. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some perfumers would also use crushed beetles or insects to create a certain colour or sheen in their perfumes. So, when you're dabbing that sweet-smelling liquid behind your ears, you're also putting a bit of crushed bug on your skin. A little gag-inducing, maybe, but that's the reality of it. It's a dark comedy of sorts, this whole beauty ritual. The use of perfumes also had a political dimension. A queen's scent was a part of her personal brand. It was a way to make a statement, to project an image of purity, grace, and wealth. At a grand ball, a queen's scent would announce her presence before she even entered the room. It was a subtle but powerful tool, a way to command respect and attention. But beneath all that scent, there was still the reality of unwashed skin and stale clothes. It was a magnificent illusion, a beautiful lie that she had to maintain at all times. A little joke. The Queen's motto should have been, "Smell good, look good, but for God's sake, don't get too close." The perfume was not just applied to the skin, it was also used on clothes and linens. The Queen's robes, her bedding, her handkerchiefs, all of them would be scented with these strong, musky perfumes. The constant exposure to these potent, often toxic chemicals could lead to skin irritation, allergies, and even respiratory problems. You might notice a rash on your arm where the perfume was applied, or a tightness in your chest after a long day in your scented robes. You might blame it on a bad humour or a strange affliction, but it's really the perfume doing its damage. A historical fact is that many medieval apothecaries were also perfumers, and their recipes were a closely guarded secret. They were the original cosmetic chemists, and their experiments were often a matter of trial and error, with the queen's health being the ultimate guinea pig. The perfume was also used to purify the air. In a world with no air conditioning or ventilation systems, a castle could get stuffy and stagnant. They would use pomanders, small metal balls filled with spices, herbs and perfumes, to carry around and sniff to ward off bad smells, and they believed to protect them from disease. A queen would have a beautiful jewelled pomander, a status symbol in its own right. But the same pomander that protected her from the bad smells was also full of the same toxic chemicals that were slowly poisoning her. It was a constant cycle of self-inflicted harm, all in the name of beauty and status. So the next time you put on a spritz of your favourite perfume, think about the medieval queen who had to dab a musky, animal-based concoction on her skin to cover up her body odour. The beautiful scents of the past were not about pleasure. They were about survival. They were a necessary evil, a tool to maintain the illusion of purity and grace in a world that was anything but. The queen's scent was a symbol of her power, but it was also a constant reminder of the gross and dangerous reality of her daily life. It's a very unromantic image, isn't it? A queen, looking like a goddess, but smelling like a musky barnyard, all while slowly poisoning herself. You've survived the feast and the fragrant but deadly perfumes. Now, it's time for the rare and ritualistic bath. For a modern person, the idea of a bath is one of comfort, cleanliness, and relaxation. But for a medieval queen, it was a risky affair, a medical procedure as much as a hygienic one. You'd be led to a private chamber, where a large wooden tub has been prepared for you. The water is often scented with herbs and flowers, rosemary, lavender, rose petals, but the belief behind the bath is not what you might expect. The common medical belief, based on ancient humoral theory, was that bathing opened the pores and made the body vulnerable to disease and bad air, or miasma. This meant that bathing was a rare and carefully considered event, not a daily routine. The queen might only bathe once a month, or perhaps even less, depending on the season and her health. So, when the bath finally happened, it wasn't a quick dip. It was a formal ritual, attended by your ladies-in-waiting, who would help you into the tub and wash you with a special harsh soap. This soap was a far cry from the gentle moisturising bars we use today. It was often made from a mixture of animal fats and lye, a highly alkaline substance derived from wood ash. This soap was incredibly harsh on the skin, stripping it of its natural oils and leaving it dry, red, and irritated. The queen's skin was already compromised from the lead-based makeup and other chemical concoctions, and this abrasive soap only made things worse. It's a cruel twist of fate. The very thing meant to cleanse your skin was also the thing that was doing it harm. Let's talk about the water itself. For a queen, the water would have been heated, a luxury that most people in the Middle Ages would never have had. But even this came with a risk. The water was often sourced from a well or a river, and without any modern purification, it could contain all sorts of bacteria and parasites. While the queen's kitchen staff might have boiled the water for drinking, the bath water was not always treated with the same care. So you're sitting in a tub of what could be, to a modern mind, a bacterial soup. It's a slightly terrifying thought, isn't it? The very act of getting clean could be what makes you sick. Historians still argue whether the perceived link between bathing and disease was a genuine observation of the dangers of contaminated water, or just a result of a lack of understanding of hygiene. It's a chicken and egg situation. Were they right to be wary, or was their fear based on ignorance? After the bath, the queen would be powdered and perfumed to cover the raw, irritated skin and the residual body odour that the bath didn't fully remove. The powders, as we've already established, were often lead-based, adding another layer of poison to her skin. The entire process was a vicious cycle of cleansing, damaging, and then covering up the damage with another toxic substance. A quirky tidbit is that some queens would have a sweating ritual instead of a full bath. They would sit in a small enclosed room with a brazier of hot coals and scented herbs, believing that the sweat would cleanse their body of toxins. It was a kind of primitive sauna, and while it may have been slightly more effective than a bath in terms of removing dirt, it was also a physically draining and potentially dangerous process, especially with no understanding of dehydration. The skin, of course, was the ultimate canvas for these dangerous rituals. A queen's skin had to be flawless, white, and blemish-free. To achieve this, she would use a whole host of lotions and ointments, many of which contained mercury or arsenic. The lotions were used to purify the skin and get rid of any blemishes or spots. The problem, as we've seen, is that these substances did more harm than good. They would burn the skin, cause rashes, and over time lead to disfigurement. The irony is that the Queen's skin would often be worse after a beauty treatment than it was before. It's a sad, funny bit of history. The Queen's beauty regimen was really a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. The Queen's hands were also a point of obsession. To keep them soft and white, she would wear gloves made of thin kid leather. The gloves were often lined with a concoction of almond oil, rose water, and sometimes a little bit of lead powder. The gloves would be worn all day, a constant reminder of her status and her commitment to beauty, but they were also a constant source of slow poisoning. With every touch, every gesture, she was absorbing more lead into her system. It's a very intimate and tragic form of self-harm. The feet were not spared either. A queen's feet would have been subjected to tight, pointed shoes that were not only uncomfortable, but could also cause deformities and bunions. To soothe her feet after a long day of standing and walking, a queen might have a foot bath, but the water would often be treated with harsh acidic substances that were meant to exfoliate the skin and make it soft. It was a painful and often ineffective process. A historical fact is that foot problems were a huge issue for the wealthy classes throughout the Middle Ages, a direct result of their fashionable but impractical footwear. The entire process of cleanliness and hygiene for a medieval queen was a paradox. She was striving for an image of purity and perfection, but the methods she used were anything but. She was using harsh, toxic substances to clean herself, and then using other, equally toxic substances to cover up the damage. The Queen's body was a battlefield, a constant struggle between her desire for beauty and the deadly reality of her beauty regimen. It's a testament to the power of vanity that she would endure so much pain and risk so much for the sake of a perfect appearance. The Queen's bath was not a time for rest and relaxation. It was a time for endurance and a little bit of fear. So the next time you take a long hot bath with your favourite bath bomb, think about the medieval queen sitting in her wooden tub, surrounded by scented water, but knowing that the water itself and the soap she was using could be the very thing that was doing her harm. It's a chilling reminder that our modern comforts are built on the often painful lessons of the past. You've made it through the dreaded bath and the subsequent repoisoning ritual. Now you're in your chambers preparing for a public appearance, perhaps a formal audience or a trip to a nearby monastery. The lady-in-waiting is draping a long, delicate veil over your head. This isn't just a piece of fabric, it's a powerful symbol. The veil, or wimple, was a crucial part of a medieval queen's attire, a sign of her piety, modesty, and most importantly her high status. Only a noblewoman of the highest rank could afford such fine, often imported, silk or linen. But the veil was also a tool of illusion, a way to conceal the flaws that her beauty rituals were creating, while simultaneously and ironically making them worse. The veil created an aura of mystery, an ethereal quality that made the queen seem almost divine. But beneath that flawless facade, the reality was far from perfect. Remember that lead-based makeup, Cyrus? It was thick, heavy, and it caked into every line and pore. The veil, draped over the queen's face, would trap heat and moisture, causing her to sweat. This sweat, in turn, would cause the lead to run and seep into her skin even more, accelerating the poisoning process. It was a suffocating, toxic mask, a beautiful prison that was slowly and silently disfiguring her. You can almost feel the beads of sweat running down your face, mixing with the chalky paste, creating a little river of poison that runs right into your pores. Beyond the makeup, the veil also created a barrier, a microclimate around the queen's head and face. In a world with no air conditioning or ventilation, this could get incredibly hot and stuffy. The lack of air circulation could cause the queen's skin to break out in rashes and sores, which she would then have to cover up with, you guessed it, more lead-based makeup. It was a vicious, self-defeating cycle, all in the name of looking modest and beautiful. Historians still argue whether the extreme heat and stuffiness from the veils contributed to the faintness and fainting spells that were so common among medieval noblewomen. Was it a sign of their delicate nature, or was it just a physical reaction to being trapped in a hot, toxic environment? The veils and headdresses themselves were often made with dyes and materials that were just as dangerous as the cosmetics. A popular dye for clothing and veils was Shields green, a vibrant, eye-catching colour made from copper arsenite. Yes, more arsenic. The dust from the headdress could fall onto the queen's skin and get into her lungs, adding to her toxic burden. A quirky tidbit is that some headdresses were so large and elaborate that they had to be supported by a wire frame, which could cause a painful indent on the queen's scalp, leading to headaches and nerve damage. The weight of the headdress was a physical burden, a constant reminder of her status, and a slow, painful path to physical decay. The veil was also a way to hide a queen's rotting teeth and bad breath. Remember the sugar? A queen's mouth would have been in a constant state of decay, and her breath would have been less than pleasant. The veil created a physical and psychological barrier, a way to keep people at a respectful distance. It was a beautiful way to hide a very unbeautiful reality. A little joke. The Queen's veil was the original air freshener, but it was just for her. The political dimension of the veil cannot be overstated. A Queen's public appearance was not just a social event. It was a political statement. The veil was a sign of her piety and her adherence to Christian values, which was crucial for maintaining a good relationship with the church. It was also a way to show her humility, to remind her subjects that even though she was a queen, she was still a devout woman. But beneath this mask of humility, she was engaged in a secret, dangerous game of vanity. The veil was a symbol of her modesty, but it was also a tool of deception, a way to hide the truth about her physical state. The constant wearing of these headdresses and veils also led to hair loss. The pressure from the headpieces and the lack of air circulation could cause the queen's hair to become brittle and thin, and when the hair did fall out, she would cover it up with more headdresses and veils, creating another self-defeating cycle. It's a sad, funny bit of history. The Queen's beauty regimen was not a path to perfection, but a path to decay. The more she tried to be beautiful, the more she disfigured herself. The entire process was a testament to the Queen's commitment to her public image. She was willing to endure pain, discomfort, and a slow, agonizing death for the sake of looking perfect. The veil was a physical manifestation of this commitment, a beautiful piece of fabric that was also a silent killer. It was a beautiful lie that she had to wear every day, a constant reminder that her beauty was not her own, but a tool of her power. And the hidden costs of that beauty were high. A life of pain, a body riddled with poison, and a face that was slowly and silently disfiguring itself. The Queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the veil was a crucial part of that journey, a symbol of her beauty and a secret tool of her demise. It was a beautiful prison, a piece of fabric that was slowly but surely taking her life. You've survived the veil and are now back in your private chamber, with your ladies-in-waiting preparing you for the next layer of your daily uniform. The corset. This is not the modern shapewear you might imagine, but a rigid, unforgiving garment made of stiffened linen, leather or whalebone. Its purpose was not just to smooth the figure, but to achieve the impossible ideal of a tiny wasp-like waist. A small waist was a sign of a woman's leisure and her freedom from manual labour. It screamed, "I don't have to work. My body is a work of art, a symbol of my class." And to achieve this symbol, a queen was willing to suffer. The process of putting on a corset was a daily ordeal. You'd stand there, your lungs and stomach constricted as your ladies-in-waiting pulled the laces tighter and tighter. You could feel the whalebone pressing into your ribs, the laces biting into your skin, your organs shifting and groaning under the pressure. The goal was to reduce your waist to an impossibly small circumference, often as little as 13 inches. It's a shocking thought, isn't it? That you'd voluntarily subject yourself to such a painful and physically damaging ritual. It's like being in a slow-motion car crash, where you're both the driver and the passenger. The physical effects of this crushing grip were, to put it mildly, catastrophic. The constant pressure on your internal organs would cause severe digestive issues, heartburn and constipation. Your stomach would be so compressed that you could only eat small bird-like portions of food, which could lead to malnutrition and a constant feeling of hunger. Your lungs would be similarly constricted, making it difficult to take a full, deep breath. A simple task like climbing a flight of stairs or walking a long distance could leave you breathless and dizzy. Fainting spells, often attributed to a woman's delicate nature, were a common and very real side effect of wearing a corset. Historians still argue whether medieval queens had a choice in this matter. Was it a personal preference, a choice made in the name of vanity, or was it a social and political necessity? Was a queen who chose not to wear a corset seen as sloppy or rebellious? The corset was not just a piece of clothing. It was a physical manifestation of her role in society. It was a beautiful cage that she had to wear every day to maintain her status and her power. A historical fact is that many medieval physicians warned of the dangers of corsetry, but their advice was often ignored in the name of fashion. It's a sad, funny bit of history. The doctors were telling them it was dangerous, and the queens were saying, "Yeah, but look at my waist." The constant wearing of a corset also led to deformities of the skeletal structure. The pressure on your ribs would cause them to become misshapen, sometimes even overlapping. Over time, your spine could become curved, leading to a hunched posture and chronic back pain. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some corsets had a sharp metal busk or a wooden stave that went down the centre, which could press against the stomach and cause internal injuries. It was a literal iron maiden of a garment, a beautiful torture device that she had to wear every day. The corset also affected a queen's ability to have children. The pressure on the reproductive organs could make it difficult to conceive, and the corset itself was a dangerous garment to wear during pregnancy. A queen who was expected to provide an heir would have to choose between her public image and the health of her unborn child. It was a brutal choice, a constant battle between her duty as a queen and her physical well-being. A little joke. The queen's womb was just a waiting room for the next royal baby, but the corset made it a very cramped one. The physical effects of a corset went beyond the internal. The constant chafing of the laces and the whalebone could cause a skin rash, sores, and even infections. These would have to be covered up with more perfume and powders, creating another vicious cycle of self-inflicted harm. The queen's body was a battlefield, a constant struggle between her desire for beauty and the deadly reality of her fashion choices. The corset was not just a piece of clothing. It was a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. The constant wearing of corsets was a testament to the queen's commitment to her public image. She was willing to endure pain, discomfort, and a slow, agonizing demise for the sake of a tiny waist. The corset was a physical manifestation of this commitment, a beautiful piece of fashion that was also a silent killer. It was a beautiful prison, a garment that was slowly but surely taking her life. The queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction, and the corset was a crucial part of that journey, a symbol of her beauty and a secret tool of her demise. It was a beautiful prison, a garment that was slowly but surely taking her life. You've endured the crushing grip of the corset and the pain that comes with it. Now you're led to a small, sterile-smelling room within the castle. A royal physician, a man of some education but with a very limited understanding of modern medicine, awaits you. He holds a small, sharp blade and a collection of glass jars. This is the next stage of your beauty regimen, bloodletting. The belief, based on the ancient theory of the four humours, was that a person's health and beauty were a direct result of the balance of four bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. To have a radiant, youthful glow, your blood had to be pure and free of any impurities that had built up over time. And the way to purify it, they believed, was to simply let some of it out. The procedure was a common and accepted part of medieval medical practice, but for a queen, it was also a beauty ritual. The idea was that by removing the bad blood, you'd be left with a fresh, pure supply that would give your skin a beautiful rosy glow. The physician would make a small incision in your arm or neck and let the blood flow freely into a basin. You can feel the sharp pain of the blade, the warm trickle of blood running down your arm, and the slow, dizzying sensation of your strength ebbing away. You're literally bleeding for beauty, a grim and very real sacrifice. The amount of blood they would take could vary, but it was often enough to leave you feeling weak and faint. The queen, of course, was expected to be a bastion of strength, but after a bloodletting session, she would have to lie down and rest for hours, sometimes days, to recover. It was a debilitating process, a constant battle against weakness and fatigue. A historical fact is that bloodletting was so popular that barbers, not just physicians, would perform the procedure. The red and white striped pole outside a barber shop is said to represent the bloody bandages and the pole that the patient would hold on to during the procedure. It's a slightly macabre bit of history that's still with us today. Bloodletting wasn't the only way they would purify the blood. Leeches were also a popular and to many a less intimidating option. You'd be led to a basin where a collection of leeches were waiting, their bodies wriggling in the water. The physician would place a few of them on your skin, and you would feel the strange, sucking sensation as they attached themselves and began to drink. It was a much slower process, but no less terrifying. The leeches would swell up as they fed, and you would have to endure the sight of them for hours before they finally detached. A quirky tidbit is that some noblewomen would keep leeches as pets, believing that they were a sign of wealth and a constant source of purification. A bit weird, but you can't argue with their commitment to the cause. The reality, of course, was that bloodletting and leeches did nothing to purify the blood. In fact, they did the opposite. By removing blood, they were weakening the Queen's immune system, making her more susceptible to disease and infection. The small cuts from the blade or the bites from the leeches could easily become infected in a world with no antibiotics. A simple beauty ritual could turn into a life-threatening illness. Historians still argue whether the constant bloodletting contributed to the mysterious deaths of some of the more famous queens. Was it a result of a disease, or was it a result of their dangerous beauty practices? It's a debate that's still going on in academic circles. The act of bloodletting also had a psychological effect. It was a ritual of control, a way to show that a queen was in charge of her own body, even if she wasn't. It was a way to feel like she was doing something, anything, to maintain her youth and beauty. In a world where she had very little control over her own destiny, a bloodletting session was a small rebellion, a way to take charge of her own life. A little joke, the Queen's bloodletting ritual was the original detox, but instead of green juice, it was just less blood. The use of leeches and bloodletting was a testament to the Queen's desperation and the limited medical knowledge of the time. They were willing to endure pain and risk their health for the sake of a temporary glow. The act of bloodletting was a public and private statement, a way to show the world that a queen was not just beautiful, but also pure and healthy. But beneath all that, she was a person, a human being, who was slowly but surely bleeding herself dry. The queen's body was a canvas, and the artists were a group of well-meaning but ill-informed physicians. They were using leeches and blades to create a masterpiece, but the masterpiece was also a slow-motion tragedy. The beautiful rosy glow on the queen's cheeks was not a sign of health. It was a sign of anemia, a sign that her body was slowly running out of blood. It was a beautiful lie that she had to maintain at all costs, a constant battle against her own biology. So, the next time you hear about a medieval queen's legendary beauty, remember the dark side of that story. The beautiful, youthful glow was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. You've survived the brutal ordeal of bloodletting, your veins a little emptier, your head a little dizzier. Now a new, even more bizarre part of your beauty ritual awaits you. You're presented with a small, delicate goblet, but it's not filled with wine. It's filled with a strange, shimmering liquid, and suspended within it a tiny, almost imperceptible flecks of gold. Your royal physician explains that this concoction, a mixture of a strong liquid and ground gold, is a powerful elixir of youth. The belief, dating back to ancient alchemists and physicians, was that gold was a divine substance, incorruptible and eternal. By ingesting it, you could transfer its properties to your own body, making yourself as beautiful and long-lasting as the gold itself. It was the ultimate status symbol, a beauty treatment that literally required you to consume your wealth. The idea of consuming precious metals and gems was a fringe practice, but for a queen, it was a tangible way to express her unparalleled status. The gold, it was believed, would purify your blood, give your skin a beautiful shimmer, and even extend your life. You can feel the tiny metallic specks scraping against your throat as you swallow, a strange, almost painful sensation. You're not just drinking a beauty potion, you're literally drinking your own money, a daily reminder of your power and your endless resources. It's a slightly ridiculous and very real part of a queen's life. A little joke, the queen's urine probably looked like a tiny glittery river. Beyond gold, some noblewomen would also consume powdered pearls. The pearls, ground into a fine powder, were often mixed with honey or vinegar to create a paste. The belief was that the pearls, being a product of the sea and an object of beauty, would make the skin and hair shimmer with a pearlescent glow. The pearl powder was believed to have a purifying effect, and some physicians even prescribed it as a cure for a variety of ailments. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some people would even use powdered coral or ground-up precious stones, like rubies or emeralds, believing that each stone had its own unique magical properties that could be transferred to the human body. It was a kind of primitive version of a supplement, but instead of vitamins, you were getting rocks. Historians still argue whether the queens were fully aware of the lack of scientific basis for these practices. Did they truly believe in the magical properties of gold and pearls, or was it just an elaborate ritual, a performance for their court and themselves? The act of consuming these precious items was a powerful political statement, a public and private declaration of wealth and power. It was a way to show that a queen was so rich and so powerful that she could literally eat her own jewels. It was a magnificent illusion, a beautiful lie that she had to maintain at all costs. The physical effects of consuming gold and pearls were, of course, non-existent. Gold is inert and passes through the digestive system unchanged. The pearls, while they might contain some calcium, were also mostly indigestible. So the queen was consuming these precious items, but they were doing absolutely nothing for her health or her beauty. They were just passing through her system, a very expensive and very pointless exercise. It's a tragic bit of history, a story of a queen who was willing to eat her own wealth for the sake of a beautiful lie. The act of consuming these items was also a testament to the queen's desperation. She had tried everything else, the lead, the arsenic, the bloodletting, and now she was resorting to this. It was a Hail Mary pass, a last-ditch effort to stop the ravages of time and disease. She was so focused on the outward appearance of beauty that she didn't realise the inside was falling apart. The beautiful, shimmery liquid she was drinking was not a magical potion. It was just a very expensive piece of jewellery that she was literally flushing down the toilet. The political dimension of this practice was immense. A queen was expected to be a bastion of wealth and power, and the act of consuming gold and pearls was a powerful way to show that. It was a way to intimidate her rivals and to impress her subjects. It was a public and private performance, a way to show the world that she was a queen in every sense of the word. But beneath it all, she was a human being, a woman who was slowly but surely poisoning herself with the lead and mercury from her other beauty rituals. The gold and pearls were just a distraction, a beautiful lie that she had to maintain at all costs. A historical fact is that the belief in the magical properties of gold and precious gems was so widespread that they were often used in medicines and tonics for a variety of ailments. The royal physician, who was supposed to be a man of science, was just as susceptible to these beliefs as anyone else. He was a product of his time, and his treatments were often a mixture of real medicine, folklore and wishful thinking. A little joke. The Queen's physician was probably just a very expensive food taster for gold. So the next time you hear about a medieval queen's legendary beauty, remember the dark side of that story. The beautiful, youthful glow was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. And the gold and pearls she was consuming were just a part of that lie. A beautiful and very expensive piece of jewellery that was doing absolutely nothing for her health or her beauty. You've swallowed your golden elixir, a very expensive and very pointless exercise in vanity. Now you stand before the mirror, a heavy, ornate object with a polished, reflective surface. To a modern person, a mirror is a simple tool for self-reflection. But for a medieval queen, it was a rare and often deadly possession. The mirrors of the era were not made with the safe modern techniques we use today. Instead, they were often made by coating a piece of glass with an amalgam of tin and mercury. That's right, more mercury. This was the same toxic substance that was used in lip pigments and skin creams, and now it was a part of the very object you used to admire your beauty. The process of creating a mirror was incredibly dangerous for the artisans, who often suffered from severe mercury poisoning. But for the Queen, the danger was more subtle and insidious. Every time she looked in the mirror, she was exposing herself to mercury vapour. The reflective surface of the mirror was not perfectly sealed, and as the mercury and tin reacted with the air, it would release tiny amounts of toxic vapour. You can almost feel the air in the room, heavy and slightly metallic. You're not just looking at your reflection, you're breathing in a silent poison, a toxic cloud that is slowly and methodically attacking your nervous system. The physical effects of mercury poisoning were severe and often mistaken for other illnesses. The most well-known symptom, which we've already discussed, was tremors, which were often called hatter's shakes, because of their prevalence among hat makers who used mercury in their work. But the effects were far more widespread. Mercury poisoning could also cause severe mood swings, memory loss, and even psychosis. A queen might find herself one day in a calm and dignified state, and the next, she's in a fit of uncontrollable rage or a deep, dark depression. Her erratic behaviour would be blamed on a bad humour or a strange affliction, but it was really the mercury doing its dirty work. Historians still argue whether the erratic behaviour of some of the more famous queens was a result of their dangerous beauty practices or just a part of their personality. It's a debate that sheds new light on the personalities of these historical figures. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that some mirrors were believed to have magical properties. They were seen as a portal to another world or a tool for divination. A queen might use her mirror not just to admire her reflection, but to seek out omens or to predict the future. This added another layer of mystery and danger to the object. The mirror was not just a tool, it was a powerful and potentially cursed artifact. A little joke. The Queen's mirror was the original Magic 8 ball, but instead of reply hazy, try again, it said, "You're getting dizzier, try again tomorrow." The obsession with a perfect reflection was a key part of the Queen's beauty ritual. She had to see herself as beautiful, as divine, as worthy of her power. But the mirror was showing her a beautiful lie. It was showing her a face that was unnaturally pale, with wide, dilated eyes and a flawless complexion. But what it wasn't showing her was the slow, methodical decay happening just beneath the surface. It was a beautiful lie that she had to believe in, a magnificent illusion that she had to maintain at all costs. The mirror also created a physical and psychological barrier. A queen was expected to be a vision of perfection, and the mirror was a tool for her to maintain that illusion. But it also created a sense of isolation. She was living in a world of her own making, a world where she was the most beautiful person in the room. But the mirror was also a constant reminder of her imperfections, a source of anxiety and self-doubt. The act of looking in the mirror was not just about vanity, it was about a constant battle against her own self-image. The use of mirrors was a testament to the Queen's desperation and the limited technology of the time. They were willing to risk their health for the sake of a temporary glow. The mirror was a public and private statement, a way to show the world that a queen was not just beautiful, but also pure and healthy. But beneath all that, she was a person, a human being, who was slowly but surely poisoning herself. The beautiful reflection she saw in the mirror was not a sign of health. It was a sign of mercury poisoning, a sign that her body was slowly but surely dying. A historical fact is that many mirrors from the medieval era have been found with high levels of mercury, a testament to the widespread use of the toxic substance. The beautiful, ornate mirrors that we see in museums today were not just objects of art, they were also silent killers, a testament to the dark side of a queen's beauty ritual. The queen's body was a canvas, and the artists were a group of well-meaning but ill-informed artisans. They were using mercury to create a masterpiece. But the masterpiece was also a slow-motion tragedy. The beautiful reflection in the mirror was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. So, the next time you look in the mirror, think about the medieval queen who had to look at her reflection, knowing that the very object she was using was slowly but surely killing her. It's a chilling reminder that our modern comforts are built on the often painful lessons of the past. You face the deadly mirror and its toxic reflection, a silent killer in your own chamber. Now, let's go deeper, behind the scenes, into the world of the royal apothecary. This was not a modern pharmacy with sterile shelves and pre-packaged medicines. This was a dark, chaotic workshop, a mixture of a kitchen, a laboratory, and a sorcerer's lair. A queen's apothecary was a trusted confidant, a man who held the secrets to her health, her beauty, and her often erratic behaviour. He was the one who brewed the potions, mixed the poultices, and prepared the elixirs that a queen would use on a daily basis. But his knowledge was a blend of ancient folklore, limited scientific understanding, and a whole lot of guesswork, making his cures as dangerous as the diseases they were meant to treat. The recipes for these beauty elixirs were closely guarded secrets, passed down through generations of royal physicians and apothecaries. They were often written in cryptic codes and Latin phrases, a way to keep their knowledge from the common people. A queen's beauty was a state secret, and the ingredients that went into it were even more so. You can almost see the apothecary, a man hunched over a bubbling cauldron, stirring a strange mixture of herbs, minerals, and who knows what else. The air is thick with the smell of strange spices and a slightly metallic odour that you can't quite place. It's a very unglamorous reality behind the glamorous facade. One of the most popular recipes was a skin cream meant to cure blemishes and give the skin a youthful glow. It was often a mixture of lead, mercury, and a variety of plant-based ingredients like rosewater or almond oil. The apothecary would carefully measure out the ingredients, but without any modern tools or understanding of chemistry, the dosage was a complete guess. The result was a potent, often toxic cream that would briefly give the skin a beautiful sheen, but would, over time, cause severe and lasting damage. The queen might have thought she was applying a miracle cure, but she was really just applying a slow-acting poison. A historical fact is that many of these recipes have been found in old medical texts and have been analysed by modern scientists, who have confirmed the presence of high levels of heavy metals. It's a testament to the dark side of a queen's beauty ritual. Beyond the skin creams, the apothecary would also prepare internal elixirs, potions meant to purify the blood and balance the humours. These were often a mixture of wine, herbs, and, you guessed it, more heavy metals. A popular ingredient was antimony, a semi-metal that was believed to have a purgative effect. The apothecary would prepare a small vial of a liquid containing antimony, which the queen would drink. The effect would be immediate and violent, severe vomiting and diarrhoea. The belief was that this was a good thing, that the body was expelling the bad humours. But what was really happening was that the queen was dehydrating herself and causing severe damage to her digestive system. It's a slightly gross and very real reality of medieval medicine. A quirky tidbit is that some apothecaries would use ingredients that were believed to have magical or divine properties, even if they had no scientific basis. A potion for fertility, for example, might contain powdered bat wings or crocodile dung, both of which were believed to have special properties. The queen might be asked to take a potion that contained these bizarre ingredients, and she would do it, believing that it would work. It's a fascinating look into the intersection of medicine and magic in the Middle Ages. Historians still argue whether the queens were fully aware of the strange ingredients in their potions, or if they were told it was just a powerful mineral with special properties. The royal apothecary was a man of immense power and trust. He held the keys to the queen's health and beauty, and his recipes were a matter of life and death. But his treatments were often more dangerous than the diseases they were meant to treat. He was a product of his time, a man who was doing the best he could with the limited knowledge he had. But his ignorance, combined with the queen's desperation, created a slow-motion tragedy. A story of a woman who was slowly but surely poisoning herself, one potion at a time. A little joke. The queen's apothecary was the original snake oil salesman, but his snake oil was made of real poison. The apothecary was also responsible for preparing the queen's makeup. The lip pigments, the cheek rouges, the powders, all of them were mixed by him. The red pigments were often made from cinnabar, a mineral that contains mercury. The white powders were often made from lead. The green eyeshadows were often made from Shields green, a dye that contains arsenic. The queen's face was a literal canvas of poison, a beautiful lie that she had to wear every day. And the man who was responsible for creating it was the one who was supposed to be her trusted physician. It's a macabre and very real reality of a queen's daily life. The queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the royal apothecary was a crucial part of that journey, a man who was trying to help but was also, in his own way, a silent killer. The secret recipes he brewed in his workshop were not just beauty elixirs. They were a testament to the dark side of a queen's vanity, a beautiful and very dangerous lie. So, the next time you hear about a medieval queen's legendary beauty, remember the dark side of that story. The beautiful, youthful glow was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. And the royal apothecary, the man who was supposed to be her healer, was also a part of that lie, a man who was trying to help but was also in his own way a silent killer. You've made it out of the apothecary's toxic den, but the danger hasn't passed. Now your ladies-in-waiting are dressing you for court. The wardrobe of a medieval queen was not just a collection of beautiful clothes, it was a textile battlefield, a silent killer in plain sight. The vibrant colours and rich fabrics, a testament to her wealth and status, were often laced with poisonous heavy metals. Every gown, every piece of lace, every stocking was a potential source of slow-acting poison. You can almost feel the weight of the fabric against your skin, a beautiful but deadly embrace. Let's talk about the dyes. To a modern eye, the colours of medieval clothing might seem muted, but to a person in the Middle Ages they were a vibrant spectacle. The most popular colours were variations of red, blue and green. But to achieve these rich, lasting colours, dyers often had to resort to a sinister ingredient: heavy metals. A historical fact is that the most coveted red dye was a pigment made from cochineal insects, but it was often mixed with tin or lead to make the colour more permanent. A beautiful blood-red gown was also a source of slow poisoning. The most dangerous colour, however, was a vibrant green. This was often achieved with a dye called Scheele's green, a pigment made from copper arsenite. Yes, more arsenic. This beautiful, eye-catching green was a favourite of the wealthy, because it was a sign of their access to expensive and rare pigments. But the fabric was a silent killer. As the queen wore the gown, the dye would rub off on her skin, and the dust from the fabric could be inhaled. The arsenic would slowly but surely seep into her system, causing a whole host of problems. Historians still argue whether the mysterious illnesses and deaths of some of the more famous queens were a result of their dangerous clothing. Was it a disease, or was it a result of the silent killer in their wardrobe? Beyond the dyes, the fabrics themselves were a source of danger. The silk and linen that a queen wore were often starched or treated with a variety of chemicals to make them stiffer and more luxurious. These chemicals could contain lead or mercury, which would slowly be absorbed by her skin. The queen's skin was already compromised by the lead-based makeup and other poisons, and this constant exposure to more toxic substances only made things worse. It was a vicious, self-defeating cycle, all in the name of looking beautiful and wealthy. A little joke. The queen's motto should have been, dress to impress, but also dress to die. The shoes were no less dangerous. A queen's shoes were often pointed and made of leather. To make them a vibrant colour, they were often dyed with the same heavy metal-based pigments. The shoes were not only uncomfortable, but the constant rubbing of the fabric against her feet could cause the dye to be absorbed into her skin. The feet, of course, were a sensitive area, and the toxins would be absorbed much more quickly. It was a very intimate and tragic form of self-harm, a way to poison herself from the ground up. The jewellery, too, was a potential source of danger. A queen's jewellery was often made of gold, silver or precious gems, but the settings for the gems could be made with a variety of alloys, some of which contained lead or mercury. The queen would be wearing these jewels all day, and the constant contact with her skin could cause the heavy metals to be absorbed into her system. A quirk or fringe tidbit is that some people believed that certain gems, like opals or sapphires, were bad luck and could bring about a queen's demise. So she would have to choose her jewels not just for their beauty, but also for their perceived magical properties. The whole wardrobe was a beautiful lie, a magnificent illusion that concealed a much more sinister truth. A queen was expected to be a bastion of beauty and wealth, and her clothing was a powerful way to show that. But the very thing that made her look beautiful was also the thing that was slowly but surely killing her. She was a walking, talking showcase of poison, a beautiful monument to a tragic reality. The politics of a queen's wardrobe were immense. A queen was a public figure, and her clothing was a powerful tool of diplomacy and power. She would wear certain colours to show her loyalty to a certain house, or her support for a certain cause. But every choice she made was a dangerous one. A beautiful gown could be a sign of her power, but it was also a sign of her slow, methodical demise. It was a constant battle between her public image and her physical well-being. Historians still argue whether the fashion trends of the time were a conscious act of rebellion against the church's strictures on vanity, or just a part of a larger trend. the Queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And her wardrobe was a crucial part of that journey, a collection of beautiful but deadly clothes that were slowly but surely taking her life. The beautiful gowns she wore were not just a symbol of her wealth, they were a symbol of her tragic reality, a beautiful prison that she had to wear every day. So the next time you look at a painting of a medieval queen, with her beautiful, vibrant gown, remember the dark side of that story. The beautiful, rich colours were not a gift from nature. They were a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. You've been poisoned by your clothes, and now stand as a walking, breathing testament to the deadly nature of medieval fashion. But the story of your suffering doesn't begin in a cold European castle. It stretches back millennia to the sands of Egypt, where the legendary Queen Cleopatra ruled. Her beauty was not just a myth, it was a potent force, and the rituals she employed were whispered across continents and through centuries, eventually influencing the very beauty practices that are slowly killing you. The medieval world, with its limited scientific knowledge, often looked back to the ancients for wisdom. But in the case of beauty, that wisdom was laced with poison. The very venom of Cleopatra's ancient rituals was still pulsing through the veins of medieval queens. One of the most famous beauty secrets attributed to Cleopatra was her use of kohl, a black powder used to line the eyes and darken the lashes. This wasn't just makeup, it was a statement of power and mystery. But the kohl was often made from galena, a mineral that contains lead. The medieval world, seeking to emulate the exotic beauty of the ancient queens, also used lead-based pigments for their eyes. So every time you put on that black eyeliner, you're not just making your eyes look beautiful, you're following in the footsteps of a queen who was also slowly poisoning herself. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? That a beauty ritual from over 1,000 years ago is still causing you harm. Beyond kohl, the ancient Egyptians also had a variety of skin creams and poultices made from a mixture of animal fats, herbs, and, you guessed it, more toxic substances. A popular recipe for a skin cream contained white lead, the same ceruse that you used to get your ghostly pallor. The Egyptians believed that the lead would whiten the skin and give it a youthful glow, and the medieval world, in its desperation for a similar effect, adopted the same recipe. A historical fact is that many of the cosmetic recipes from ancient Egypt have been translated and analysed by modern chemists, who have found a surprising number of toxic ingredients in them. It's a testament to the fact that the pursuit of beauty has always been a dangerous game. The use of belladonna, the deadly nightshade plant that you use to make your pupils dilate, also has roots in the ancient world. The ancient Romans and Greeks used it for both medicinal and cosmetic purposes. They knew it was a powerful substance, and they used it to make their eyes look bigger and more alluring. The medieval world, seeking to emulate the powerful and beautiful women of the ancient empires, adopted the same practice. A quirky or fringe tidbit is that the Roman goddess of beauty, Venus, was often depicted with large, dilated pupils, a sign of her divine and otherworldly beauty. The use of belladonna was a way to emulate the gods, to make yourself a little more divine, a little less human. The influence of ancient practices went beyond just cosmetics. The ancient Romans, for example, had a fascination with bathing and perfumes. They would use strong, musky perfumes to mask body odour, just like the medieval queens, and their perfumes were often made from the same animal-based ingredients, like civet and ambergris. The medieval world, in its attempt to recapture the glory of the Roman Empire, adopted the same perfume-making techniques. A little joke. The Queen's perfume was a time machine that took her back to a Roman bathhouse, but instead of toga-clad Romans, it was just her own body odour. The ancient world also had its share of dangerous medical practices that influenced the medieval world. The ancient Greeks, for example, were big believers in the theory of the four humours, the same theory that you use to justify bloodletting. The Greeks believed that a person's health was a direct result of the balance of these humours, and that any imbalance could be cured by a variety of medical procedures, including bloodletting and purging. The medieval world, in its attempt to recapture the medical knowledge of the ancients, adopted the same practices. The Queen's bloody ordeal was not a new invention. It was a ritual that had been passed down for thousands of years. Historians still argue whether the medical knowledge of the ancients was a genuine step forward or just a collection of dangerous and unproven theories. It's a debate that sheds new light on the history of medicine. The venom of Cleopatra's ancient rituals was a powerful force, one that influenced the medieval world in ways that are still being discovered. The queens and noblewomen of the Middle Ages were not just poisoning themselves with the limited knowledge of their own time, they were also following in the footsteps of a long line of women who were doing the same. It was a beautiful and tragic legacy, a story of a long-standing, generational struggle for beauty. The entire process was a testament to the Queen's desperation and her willingness to do anything for the sake of her public image. She was a woman who was living in a world that was constantly looking back, constantly trying to recapture the glory of the past, and in that quest for glory she was also inheriting a legacy of pain and death. The beautiful, timeless rituals of the ancient queens were a silent killer in the wardrobe of a medieval queen. The queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the ancient world, with its beautiful and dangerous secrets, was a crucial part of that journey. The beautiful, timeless rituals of the ancient queens were a beautiful lie that she had to believe in, a magnificent illusion that concealed a much more sinister truth. You've inherited a legacy of poison from the ancients, a dark inheritance that you wear on your face and in your wardrobe. But why? Why would a woman of such power and influence subject herself to such a dangerous and self-destructive regimen? The answer lies not just in vanity, but in the ruthless, high-stakes world of medieval politics. A queen's appearance was not her own. It was a tool, a weapon, a political statement that was as powerful as any army. Her beauty was her currency, a symbol of her power, her virtue, and her divine right to rule. A queen's complexion, for example, was a political statement. The ghostly white pallor, achieved with lead and arsenic, was not just a sign of beauty. It was a sign of her purity and her high status. A tanned, sun-kissed face was the mark of a peasant who toiled in the fields, a sign of her low station. A queen, by contrast, had to be a vision of ethereal, otherworldly beauty, a woman who was so important that she never had to set foot outside. Her pale skin was a silent scream of her wealth and power, a declaration that she was a class above the common people. To be beautiful was to be powerful, and to be powerful was to be beautiful. The two were inextricably linked. The Queen's body was also a site of political theatre. The tiny wasp-like waist, achieved with a corset, was a sign of her leisure and her freedom from manual labour. It was a visual declaration that she was a woman of wealth and status, a woman who was not expected to work. The corset, with its crushing grip, was a physical manifestation of her power, a beautiful cage that she had to wear every day to maintain her status. Historians still argue whether the extreme discomfort and physical damage from corsetry was a conscious sacrifice on the part of the Queen, or just an accepted part of her daily life. Was it a form of penance, a physical reminder of her station, or was it just a part of the ruthless game of medieval politics? A queen's beauty was also a tool of diplomacy. In a world where alliances were forged through marriage, a queen's appearance was her most valuable asset. A beautiful queen could secure a powerful alliance, forge a new relationship with a foreign power, and bring peace and prosperity to her kingdom. A less than beautiful queen, by contrast, could be a source of shame and embarrassment, a political liability that could undermine her kingdom's power. Her beauty was not just a personal matter, it was a matter of state, a national asset that was as important as any army or navy. A little joke. The Queen's mirror was the original foreign policy briefing. The Queen's wardrobe, with its vibrant colours and rich fabrics, was also a political statement. The beautiful rich colours, achieved with dangerous dyes, were a sign of her wealth and her access to a global network of trade. A vibrant red gown was a sign of her power, a rich blue, a sign of her royalty, and a beautiful green, a sign of her wealth. But these colours, as we know, were also laced with poison. The Queen was a walking, talking showcase of poison, a beautiful monument to her tragic reality. Her wardrobe was a silent killer, a beautiful and deadly embrace that she had to wear every day. The Queen's health was also a matter of state. A healthy queen, one who was able to provide an heir, was a source of stability and power for her kingdom. An unhealthy queen, one who was constantly sick or in pain, was a source of weakness and vulnerability. The Queen's beauty rituals, which were slowly but surely poisoning her, were also a source of her weakness. She was a woman who was a walking paradox, a woman who was trying to be beautiful and healthy but was in fact a source of her own demise. A quirk or fringe tidbit is that some queens would use their beauty rituals as a way to control their own destiny. By choosing to use a certain poison or a certain dangerous procedure, she was taking control of her body and her fate in a world where she had very little control. The queen's beauty was also a tool of social control. The queen was expected to be a bastion of purity, grace and perfection, and her beauty was a way to enforce that image. The beautiful, ghostly pallor, the tiny waist, the vibrant colours, all of them were a way to show her subjects that she was a woman who was above them, a woman who was worthy of their respect and admiration. But beneath it all, she was a human being, a woman who was slowly but surely poisoning herself. The entire process was a testament to the queen's desperation and her willingness to do anything for the sake of her public image. She was a woman who was living in a world that was constantly scrutinising her, constantly judging her. And in that scrutiny, she was also inheriting a legacy of pain and death. The beautiful, timeless rituals of the ancient queens were a silent killer in the wardrobe of a medieval queen. The queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction, and the politics of her appearance were a crucial part of that journey. Her beauty was a beautiful lie that she had to believe in, a magnificent illusion that concealed a much more sinister truth. The beautiful gowns she wore were not just a symbol of her wealth, they were a symbol of her tragic reality, a beautiful prison that she had to wear every day. So the next time you look at a painting of a medieval queen with her beautiful, vibrant gown, remember the dark side of that story. The beautiful, rich colours were not a gift from nature, they were a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The queen's beauty was not a natural state, it was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. You've journeyed through the medieval world, where beauty was a slow poison, a beautiful lie you had to live every day. But as the centuries turn and we move into the early 20th century, the danger of beauty rituals doesn't disappear, it simply evolves. The poison becomes more sophisticated, more insidious, and even more alluring. We're skipping ahead a bit, but for good reason. The story of deadly beauty rituals is not confined to the medieval era. It continues with the discovery of a new magical element, radium. It was the miracle cure of the modern world, a substance that promised eternal youth and a beautiful, glowing complexion. And just like the lead and arsenic of the past, it was a silent, lethal killer. In the early 1900s, Marie Curie's discovery of radium was a global sensation. Radium was a radioactive element that emitted a faint, beautiful glow in the dark. It was believed to have a variety of health benefits, from curing cancer to improving digestion. But for the wealthy and the powerful, it was a new frontier in the quest for beauty. The promise of a radiant glow was a literal one. Cosmetics companies began to sell a variety of products containing radium, from face powders and creams to lipsticks and tonics. The advertising promised a beautiful, youthful complexion, a glow that would come from within. A quirk or fringe tidbit is that some beauty magazines of the era would have small ads promising a radium glow to their readers, a term that sounds horrifying to a modern ear but was seen as a sign of progress and modernity at the time. The radium-laced products were incredibly expensive, a sign of true wealth and status. A queen or a noblewoman who could afford these products was not just a woman of beauty, she was a woman of the future, a woman who was embracing the latest in scientific discovery. But just like the lead and mercury of the past, the radium was a slow, methodical poison. When applied to the skin, it would cause severe burns and sores. When ingested in tonics, it would attack the internal organs, causing anemia, brittle bones, and eventually a horrific death. A historical fact is that many of the women who used these products suffered from severe radiation poisoning, a condition that was often mistaken for a variety of other illnesses. The glowing, beautiful skin they so desperately sought was the first sign of their impending demise. The obsession with a beautiful, youthful glow was a powerful force, one that transcended the centuries. A queen, or a woman who aspired to be one, was willing to risk everything for the sake of a perfect appearance. The radium was a new, modern poison, but the motivation was the same as it was in the medieval era. The desperate and often misguided quest for beauty. Historians still argue whether the women who used these products were fully aware of the dangers. Did they truly believe in the magical properties of radium, or was it just a desperate and final attempt to hold on to their youth and beauty? It's a debate that sheds new light on the tragic history of beauty. The political dimension of radium was immense. A queen's beauty was a tool of her power, a way to show her subjects that she was a woman of the future, a woman who was not afraid to embrace the latest in scientific discovery. The radium glow was a silent scream of her wealth and power, a declaration that she was a class above the common people. But beneath it all, she was a human being, a woman who was slowly but surely poisoning herself. A little joke. The Queen's motto should have been, "I'm so beautiful, I glow in the dark." The tragic reality of radium was that it didn't just affect the women who used it. The young women who were hired to paint the faces of clocks with radium-laced paint suffered from the same horrific symptoms. These radium girls, as they were known, would lick their paintbrushes to get a fine tip, and in doing so they were ingesting a lethal dose of radiation. Their bones would become brittle and break, their jaws would rot, and their skin would glow with a macabre light. Their story is a sobering reminder that the pursuit of beauty has always had a dark side, a side that is often hidden from view. The Queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the discovery of radium with its beautiful and deadly glow was a crucial part of that journey. The beautiful, timeless rituals of the ancient queens were a silent killer in the wardrobe of a medieval queen. The Queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the fatal glow of radium was a beautiful lie that she had to believe in, a magnificent illusion that concealed a much more sinister truth. The beautiful, glowing skin she so desperately sought was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. So the next time you see a vintage advertisement for a radium glow, or a beautiful, glowing image of a woman from the early 20th century, remember the dark side of that story. The beautiful, youthful glow was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. You've seen the long, dark shadow that the pursuit of beauty has cast across the centuries, a history of slow, self-inflicted poisoning. But you don't have to just take my word for it. The truth of these tragic rituals is now being revealed by modern science, a forensic investigation into the lives of the queens and noblewomen who are slowly killing themselves for the sake of beauty. The evidence isn't found in musty old books or forgotten recipes. It's found in their very bones, in their hair, in the final, physical remnants of their lives. A new generation of forensic historians and archaeologists are digging up the past, and what they're finding is both a testament to their suffering and a horrifying confirmation of the lethal nature of their beauty routines. One of the most powerful tools in this modern-day detective story is the analysis of human remains. When a person is exposed to heavy metals like lead or mercury over a long period of time, the toxins don't just disappear. They build up in the body, becoming a part of the very bone structure. Scientists can now take small samples of bone from a medieval queen's tomb and use a technique called mass spectrometry to detect the presence of these heavy metals. The results are often shocking. They show levels of lead and mercury that are many times higher than what would be considered safe today. A historical fact is that the remains of some of the most famous queens in history have been exhumed and analysed, and the results have confirmed the presence of these toxic substances. It's a sobering and very real confirmation of the lethal nature of their beauty rituals. Beyond the bones, the hair is also a powerful source of evidence. Hair is like a time capsule, a record of everything a person has consumed or been exposed to over their lifetime. Scientists can take a small sample of hair from a royal tomb and analyse it for the presence of heavy metals. A quirk or fringe tidbit is that by analysing different sections of the hair, they can even create a timeline of a person's exposure to toxins. For example, a high concentration of lead near the root of the hair might indicate that a queen had been using a lead-based cosmetic in the last few months of her life, while a high concentration near the tip might indicate an earlier exposure. This allows historians to build a detailed and very personal picture of a queen's slow, agonizing demise. The evidence from these forensic investigations has also helped to solve some of the historical mysteries surrounding the lives and deaths of these queens. The erratic behaviour, the strange illnesses, the sudden deaths, all of them can now be explained by the presence of these heavy metals. The mental health problems that were once attributed to a queen's delicate nature or a bad humour can now be explained by the neurological damage caused by mercury poisoning. The severe digestive issues can now be explained by the physical damage caused by a corset and a constant exposure to lead. A little joke, the Queen's autopsy report would have read, "Cause of death, a beautiful life." Historians still argue whether the Queens were fully aware of the dangers of their beauty rituals. The evidence from these forensic investigations doesn't give us a clear answer, but it does show us that the danger was real and present. The Queens were not just living in a world of ignorance, they were also living in a world of desperation. They were so focused on the outward appearance of beauty that they were willing to risk everything for it, even their lives. The forensic evidence is a silent scream, a final physical testament to their suffering. The clothing and cosmetics that they used are also a powerful source of evidence. The beautiful, vibrant gowns that we see in museums today have been analysed by modern scientists who have found a shocking amount of heavy metals in the dyes. The lead and mercury from the dyes would have slowly been absorbed into the Queen's skin, adding to her toxic burden. The beautiful ornate mirrors that we see in castles and museums have also been found to have high levels of mercury, a testament to the fact that the Queen's obsession with her reflection was also a source of her demise. It's a very unglamorous reality behind the glamorous facade. The evidence from these forensic investigations is a sobering reminder that the pursuit of beauty has always had a dark side, a side that is often hidden from view. The beautiful ghostly pallor, the tiny waist, the vibrant colours, all of them were a beautiful lie that she had to live every day. But the forensic evidence is a final physical confirmation of the truth. The Queen's body was a battlefield, a constant struggle between her desire for beauty and the deadly reality of her beauty regimen. The historical evidence is a silent scream, a final physical testament to her suffering. The Queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the historical evidence from her remains is a crucial part of that journey. Her body was a beautiful and tragic testament to her suffering, a final, physical confirmation of the deadly nature of her beauty rituals. The beautiful, timeless rituals of the ancient queens were a silent killer in the wardrobe of a medieval queen. The beautiful, youthful glow was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. The Queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. And the historical evidence from her remains is a final, physical confirmation of that truth. You've witnessed the full, grim cycle of a medieval queen's beauty ritual, from the lead-laced creams and arsenic powders to the mercury-filled mirrors and toxic clothing. You've seen how her desperation and the limited scientific knowledge of her time created a slow, self-inflicted poison. But the story doesn't end with her tragic death. It lives on, a chilling reminder that the pursuit of beauty has always been a dangerous game, one that has left a lasting legacy on our modern world. The choices you make every day, from the products you use to the standards you try to meet, are all, in a strange way, a part of this long, unbroken chain of deadly beauty. One of the most obvious legacies is the shift in our understanding of what it means to be beautiful. The ghostly pallor of the medieval queen, once a sign of wealth and status, is now a symbol of illness and a lack of vitality. We now seek a healthy, sun-kissed glow, a look that would have been seen as the mark of a peasant in the Middle Ages. The tiny, wasp-like waist, once a symbol of leisure, is now seen as a sign of an unhealthy and often painful obsession. The standards of beauty have changed, and in many ways, for the better. We have moved away from the idea that beauty is something that must be achieved through pain and self-destruction, and toward a more holistic view of health and wellness. But the dark side of this legacy still remains. The beauty industry, while far more regulated today, still grapples with the issue of safety. The use of toxic ingredients, while no longer commonplace, is still a concern. The products we use every day, from hair dyes to nail polishes, still contain a variety of chemicals that can be harmful if used incorrectly. The queens of the past were poisoning themselves with lead and mercury, and we are still navigating a world where the ingredients in our products can be a source of harm. A historical fact is that many of the modern beauty standards, from the use of perfumes to the desire for a youthful glow, have their roots in these ancient and often dangerous rituals. The political dimension of beauty also lives on. A woman's appearance is still in many ways a tool of her power. We live in a world where a woman's beauty can be a source of her success, a way to gain social and professional advancement. The pressure to be beautiful is immense, and it's a pressure that women of all ages and backgrounds face. The medieval queen was a prisoner of her own beauty, a woman who was forced to conform to a certain ideal to maintain her status. We too are often prisoners of our own beauty, a society that is constantly scrutinizing and judging a woman's appearance. A little joke, the Queen's motto was "dress to kill," and we're still trying to live up to that. The tragic stories of the medieval queens are also a cautionary tale, a reminder that the pursuit of beauty at all costs is a dangerous and self-destructive path. The stories of their suffering are not just a part of history, they're a part of our own story. We can learn from their mistakes, and we can choose a different path, one that is based on health, wellness, and self-love, not on a dangerous and often toxic ideal of perfection. The beauty industry, while a source of danger in the past, is now a source of empowerment, a way for women to express themselves and to feel good about themselves. But we must be vigilant, and we must remember the lessons of the past. The study of historical forensics is a crucial part of this legacy. The analysis of the royal remains and the toxic ingredients in their cosmetics has given us a new understanding of the lives and deaths of these queens. It has shown us that the stories we read in books are not just a collection of historical facts, they are a collection of personal tragedies, a testament to the suffering of women who are caught in a brutal and unforgiving system. Historians still argue whether the extreme discomfort and physical damage from their beauty rituals was a conscious sacrifice on the part of the queen, or just an accepted part of her daily life. It's a debate that sheds new light on the tragic history of beauty. The queen's beauty ritual was not a journey to perfection, but a slow, methodical process of self-destruction. And the lasting legacy of that journey is a chilling reminder that the pursuit of beauty has always been a dangerous game. The beautiful, ghostly pallor, the tiny waist, the vibrant colours, all of them were a beautiful lie that she had to live every day. But the historical evidence from her remains is a final, physical confirmation of the truth. The queen's body was a battlefield, a constant struggle between her desire for beauty and the deadly reality of her beauty regimen. The queen's beauty was not a natural state. It was a man-made illusion, a magnificent lie that concealed a much more sinister truth. And the lasting legacy of that lie is a chilling reminder that the pursuit of beauty has always been a dangerous game. The beautiful, youthful glow was not a gift from nature. It was a result of a slow, painful process of self-inflicted harm. Now, as you lie in your bed, a modern person in a modern world, you can rest easy knowing that the lead-laced creams and arsenic powders are a thing of the past. The corsets and the toxic clothing are gone, and the mercury-filled mirrors are just a part of history. You are free from the dangers of the past, but the lessons of the past still remain. The pursuit of beauty, while a source of joy and self-expression, can also be a source of pain and self-destruction. So, as you drift off to sleep, remember the medieval queen, a woman who was so beautiful that she glowed in the dark, a woman who was a testament to the fact that beauty can be a beautiful and a deadly thing. The air in the room is still. The fan whispers a soft, rhythmic hum, a gentle presence in the darkness. Let the images of the past fade now, the pale faces and the vibrant, dangerous clothes. Feel the soft comfort of your pillow beneath your head, the quiet calm of your room. The stories are done for the night. You've walked through the castle halls and seen the secrets hidden in the shadows, the pain beneath the porcelain skin. But that world is far away now. You're safe in your bed, in a world that knows so much more. Let the history settle into a gentle stillness in your mind, a whisper of a tale told long ago. Breathe in the quiet, breathe out the day, and let your mind and body finally rest. All is well.